Welcome to Straight from the Source with Hayley Watts. Our guest today is Erik Gustafson, the busiest man in Chico, now the assistant city manager. And so this is new, right?
Yes.
I've known you for years as the public works director for operations and maintenance.
Correct,
specifically.
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about how you got involved in public works with the city of Chico. What was your first introduction to this field?
Yeah, I graduated from Chico State in 2002 and worked in the private sector for about 7 years, managing a Caterpillar equipment dealership as a service manager. Was kind of being poised to take over another store in a different town and really wanted to stay in the North State. I was born and raised in Redding, loved my time at Chico, and I saw the opportunity for the fleet manager position at the city of Chico and went through the recruitment process and got the job. So I started as a fleet manager back in 2007 with the city of Chico.
So is that, you're studying construction management essentially? What do you study for this
I was
sort of
actually
role?
I was a business major. Business administration. Yeah, I figured that would be broad enough to kind of cast a wide net and really do anything, and it served me well in that capacity.
Okay,
for sure.
Interesting. So, you know, when I first met you, I think most of the stories were related to trees, right?
Okay.
Like that's a lot. I mean,
one
Chico's
of the divisions in public works.
36% tree coverage, right?
Yeah,
Just for the city of
36%
Chico?
tree canopy coverage, and we have goals through our urban forest master plan to try to get that to 40% in the next 20 years.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the things people love about Chico so much.
Tree-lined streets.
I would imagine, though, it's a kind of a sketchy, scary thing. It's a big job to make sure that they're maintained and that they're safe, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a benefit and a burden, right? I mean, it's a benefit to have abundant tree canopy coverage in your city for all the obvious reasons, shade and so on and so forth, climate-related reasons, and aesthetics. I mean, they're beautiful, especially this time of year. If you drive down the Esplanade in the fall colors, it's really fantastic. But it's also a burden. It comes with a lot of risk and liability. We're all familiar with summer limb drop here in Chico, which is kind of a phenomenon when, you know, it's really dry. There's not a lot of, you know, there's no moisture, and the trees are really sucking up a lot of water because of the high heat, and some of the valley oaks in particular and sycamore species will suck up a lot of water, and then those limbs get really heavy and just all of a sudden break off. So we want to try to mitigate that as much as possible. So we do a lot of, you know, tree pruning and weight reduction on the tree canopy itself to try to prevent that from happening.
Right.
But it's difficult. It's a large task, obviously, with close to 40,000 city street trees in our inventory, which doesn't include our open spaces, you know, the vast majority of Bidwell Park and some of our greenway open spaces as well, where there's a lot more trees on top of the 40,000 registered city street trees.
I mean, I went to Chico State, and it almost became like urban legend about the young woman who had a tree branch hit her, right, and killed. And that wasn't a city tree.
Not a city tree. It was on the university campus, but still, that's a huge concern. And tree risk liability and to mitigate that is a big topic with municipalities throughout the state and the country, for that matter.
It blows my mind these days because you see people with like AirPods or worse, Beats. Like what's cool about those new AirPods that they have, like I'll use one when I'm out running, right?
Perfect.
And that way, and it has kind of like if there's a car behind you, you can hear it and it lowers your volume. But some people I see, especially young people with like Beats on and they're walking around in the park. I think that just when it comes to falling limb risk or whatever, having that awareness, like if it's windy out, you're going to hear that creaking noise before it's too late.
Yeah, I agree with you, Hayley, and I see the same thing, and it's troublesome because you want to take advantage of your five senses, right? And you will hear a limb crack, and you won't hear it if you have AirPods or headphones on. So yeah, I recommend the one ear, keeping one ear open to be able to hear or see. But yeah, we've heard it during the summer limb drop that you could hear it start to crack, and you know, hopefully you look up and are not underneath it. But we've heard it before while operating and working in the park.
Yeah, it's part of, you know, nature. Nature's beautiful, but full of risk.
There's also some danger associated.
Yeah, definitely. So, and within the Public Works Department, another big thing that you've taken on over the years has just been like road rehab, right? And bridges. I mean, some of the bridges in Chico are so cool, but we're really old. And maybe not even necessarily still structurally safe to a certain degree, right? Like, what are some of the projects that you feel like pretty proud of and good about?
Well, the engineering side of Public Works delivers some really complex, really fantastic projects, some big infrastructure-related projects. The bridge, the pedestrian bridge over 20th Street, connecting our north and south bike path network is a great example, and that's leveraged. A lot of people are scrutinize the cost as a $23 million project, recognize that, but a majority of it was grant funded from active transportation grant funding.
Yeah.
So, our engineering staff they're fantastic at going after grants and finding that state and federal money to bring it into Chico. If we didn't do that, somebody else would get it. So we have that kind of approach that, hey, let's be aggressive and try to get those grant dollars as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So those are great projects. Our roadway infrastructure, pavement management projects, it's there's a lot of past projects, present projects, and then future planned projects. And they're all listed on our website under the engineering side of Public Works, and they have a great interactive website where you can see where we're at and what we're doing and what's upcoming. If it's near your neighborhood or maybe it's on a street that you drive commonly, you could see what's coming next.
So things like the Bruce Road rehabilitation, so that's
Right.
under the engineering part of Public Works, but things like potholes and that
Correct.
sort of stuff, that's the operations and maintenance that you were in charge of, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
there's Public Works is a large department. It was we kind of did a large consolidation back in 2015 where we consolidated a lot of different departments into one large Public Works department with two arms. One arm is engineering, and the second arm is operations and maintenance. And kind of an easy way to remember it is engineering builds it, operations and maintenance maintains it.
Okay.
So and there's a great collaboration. I mean, we sit down commonly with our engineering colleagues and map out where are they going and what are we going to do on the O&M side. O&M recently purchased a large asphalt grinder and a fleet of dump trucks that are large enough to accommodate the grinder. So we have a great process now where we're going in and doing dig-out repairs prior to a surface treatment that engineering would administer. So typically we're going after the wheel cuts is where we call them wheel cuts, but it's where the wheels and tires of a vehicle make contact with the road. That's where we see those depressions and indentions and the common wear. Well, we'll replace that, grind out that wheel cut and replace it with new asphalt. And then engineering will come in behind O&M the following year and do a slurry seal treatment over the whole roadway surface, the whole width of the roadway. And basically you have a brand new road surface that's likely going to last in certain conditions another 15, maybe sometimes 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's we're trying to stretch our tax dollars as much as we possibly can.
Right.
And to do as much as we possibly can. And it's been a great combination, a great success so far.
So let's talk like pothole politics here, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, if someone's your friend or neighbor, do they get their potholes filled sooner?
No,
No.
they don't.
How does it work?
There's
What's
a
the
whole
preference?
process. And we try to be as responsive as possible. I'll be very candid. Filling a pothole is just a Band-Aid. It's a temporary repair, and what it really means is that roadway section has failed.
Yeah.
We don't like to fill potholes. We do it. We're very good at it and very responsive. We have two pothole trucks, if you will, and two crews that go out on those trucks, and we try to get to really bad ones within 24 or 48 hours max. There's a whole triage, if you will, of looking at is it a major thoroughfare, a corridor, East Avenue, Esplanade. That's a highly traveled roadway section. We try to prioritize those first, obviously, versus maybe a residential street. But of course, the folks that live on that residential street, it's a top priority for them. We certainly understand that as well, but sometimes it might just take us a little bit longer to get to those versus a major corridor, an arterial, if you will, we call it in the roadway business. It's very similar to the body's circulatory system. Arterials are the main roadways, and then collectors, and then the residential streets. So residential streets put cars on those collector streets. The collector streets put it onto those other corridor streets.
Okay. So let's talk about a job that a lot of people in the community might not know that you've had is the media contact, right? Essentially, you became that sort of because, like, I remember during the campfire that Mark Orm was the city manager and he kind of like temporarily had a media person.
Sure.
But especially when it came to the Warren deal and the settlement, and city council couldn't say anything, and it was always just like, I felt like we were being told, just talk to Erik, just talk to Erik. And like, how did that become your thing?
Well, I think, having the opportunity to be the director over Public Works Operations and Maintenance for 10 years was a great honor, and especially to represent the men and women of the Public Works O&M department. They're a fantastic group of individuals that work really hard and are very good at what they do. It's very diverse. It's 10 different divisions, anywhere from park maintenance to street maintenance to airport, street trees, wastewater treatment plant, sewer and storm drain underground. So very diverse department, which meant we had our hands on a lot. And then during the Warren settlement, it became, okay, how are we going to enforce these areas that are impacted by those experiencing homelessness, and who's going to clean it up? And of course that landed in Public Works O&M. I mean, we have a common saying in Public Works O&M, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? And so we kind of follow that mantra and take on anything and everything we possibly can. So we were up for the task, and basically, of course, it's a natural landing for Public Works crews to do the cleanup and the restoration of those particular areas that were impacted.
So from 2020, when the stay-at-home orders went out and we really started to see campgrounds like take hold as like permanent or long-term communities, and trash start to pile up, and then crews started to collect it. Do you have like a ballpark about how much trash has been cleared from campsites?
We have those figures. It's millions and millions of pounds. Yeah, thousands of tons.
Does it all go to the Neal Road landfill?
Not all of it. We do try to recycle and sort as much as we possibly can. Back when we, as you noted, during the pandemic, a previous council directed staff to stop enforcing our anti-camping ordinances. And that's where you really saw a lot of our public spaces get impacted during the pandemic. A different council coming out of the pandemic then directed staff to start enforcing our anti-camping ordinances. And then, of course, we were sued under some of that action and entered into a settlement agreement, as you mentioned. So we were dealing with, once we came out of the settlement, some very impacted areas that homeless folks were very entrenched in and had been in there a while. I mean, they were cities, Comanche Creek, for example, Windchime Park, all of those were heavily entrenched, and they were cities.
Yeah.
In fact, it's odd, we learned through the outreach and engagement process that there were landlords and tenants within those communities. Like, certain folks had 2 or 3 tents and would rent or lease, some of those tents out to other folks that were experiencing homelessness.
And do you remember at Comanche Creek there was some gentleman who had like a vegetable garden, and it was like this cool thing, except for he was like diverting water from an actual
the public drinking
irrigation.
Fountain. And the landscape irrigation.
So it's interesting though, like, because I've heard the argument for and against managed campgrounds and that sort of thing. But I remember, like, it wasn't until like seeing what was being cleared out of these living situations that it kind of just makes you think, like, gosh, no human deserves to live like that in that. It can't be safe or healthy at all for somebody to live amongst that garbage.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're really seeing now, Hayley, in post. We're well through the settlement agreement. We have, not through it, we have 13 months left, but it's a 5-year agreement, so we're close to being in the last year. And that's the element that we're really seeing now, the folks that are choosing to be there, if you will. I kind of have this, I call it Erik Gustafson's 4 quadrants of homelessness. It's not scientific by any means, it's just based on my experience and what I've seen. The first quadrant is a Chico family or individual that's maybe down on their luck, and there's a lot of services for that individual. They're seeking services. The second quadrant is those that are mentally ill. The third quadrant is those that are drug addicted and have resorted to criminal behavior to support their habit. And then the fourth quadrant is, we call them the home free or the anarchists that are service resistant, and they want to live that lifestyle. They don't want to live within any sort of confinement or any rules. And of course, mental illness kind of traverses through all 4 quadrants, and you have to treat all 4 quadrants differently.
That's what I was going to ask, because it's not just a theory, because you really have firsthand experience more so than the average person, because I'm sure you encounter the same sort of individuals. And I would always guess that service resistant type, that there's got to be, for a lot of them, that maybe if a mental illness or a mental health illness or a drug addiction was treated, that maybe they wouldn't feel that way. But
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, some of them, I'm sure it's a philosophical thing. Like, I like the idea. when I was in my early 20s, I was like, stick it to the man, and I didn't
Sure.
want to follow the rules of the 9 to 5.
Right,
And,
yeah.
But yeah, it seems like after time it would be hard to live that way unless you had some other issue keeping you there.
Yeah, and that's what we're up against now. I mean, the settlement agreement has been pretty effective as far as our outreach and engagement efforts. The 2 sheltering options that we're able to offer, which is Genesis or the pallet shelter, and the Torres shelter. Both are great facilities and do great work. But the folks that are still out there now have refused those sheltering options. So they're really the drug addicted, mentally ill, and those, the kind of landing in that 4th quadrant, if you will, of just being home free. They don't want to live by any rules, are confined to any rules that are established at those. And at Genesis, the rules are very minimal. Per the settlement agreement, we're not able to really layer in many rules at all or require case management or even have a time term for their stay there, which is very frustrating.
Okay.
So people could stay there for the entire 5-year term, and that's something we've kind of argued against in the past. So we have to be able to institute some form of rules and requirements to seek case management, try to transition out of that situation and term your stay there. It has been successful for a lot of folks. There's a lot of folks that transitioned out of Genesis into a more permanent solution. There's folks that are there that are working, they've gotten jobs and are doing quite well and saving to get to that next step. So it is effective in a lot of ways, but there's also people that abuse it too.
Okay, yeah, it's funny because that's managed by the Jesus Center, right? And Amber does a fantastic job.
Does a great job
of everything she does, but one of those things she does a good job of is protecting the privacy of the residents there, right? So I have so many questions just about that. I didn't realize that there wasn't a time limit. So some of those people could be there until January 1st of 2027. It's not like you're being, like with Torres, how they say, hey, you got to get up and go look for work. Like people just, once you get that pallet, as long as you don't kind of ruffle any feathers, you can stay.
Yeah, we've been able to layer in a code of conduct with some reasonable rules, and we've recently transitioned those same rules in that code of conduct to the alt site, which is another story on the corner of Eden and Cohasset. But we are able to, through negotiations, it took some time to get some reasonable rules layered in. So yeah, you have to be respective. You have to limit the amount of material that you bring into Genesis. You can't leave for a specific period of time. You can't be disrespectful to staff. There's an animal limit. You can't have more than 2 animals. So there's some reasonable rules, but there is no requirement to seek case management services or a time limit on your stay there.
Okay. And you think that maybe after the settlement expires, essentially, that we would keep pallet shelter to some capacity, but then add in more rules?
Of course, and that's one of the items that I'm tasked with at the moment as Assistant City Manager. In likely the first part of 2026, we'll be bringing some options to Council for consideration on post-Warren settlement. So once the Warren settlement expires, we could go back to, based on the Supreme Court ruling in June of 2024, we could go back to enforcing our normal anti-camping ordinances, which is basically 72-hour notification, and go from there.
And you think that alternative site will go away?
It will, correct.
Okay.
And we're working with those individuals now on some very aggressive case management to find them an alternative location than staying there. So we've actually reduced those numbers pretty quickly over the last few months, and we want to continue to do so. There's, of course, obvious impacts to the adjoining businesses and neighbors, as the news station is close to that area as well. But as far as Genesis, we will be bringing some options to Council to consider. I think there's definitely an immediate need, or still a need, for emergency housing in this area, in this region, in the city of Chico. So I personally would like to see Genesis continue, but we'll likely propose some options with a reduced capacity, a little bit more manageable budget. So, currently there's 177 units there. It has the potential, they're double bed units, so 354 total beds. Maybe it's 100 units or maybe it's 75. And so we're working now with our Jesus Center partners on what would that look like from a cost perspective, to maybe hone that down a little bit so it's a little bit more manageable and not so costly for the city of Chico.
Okay, and when you talk about emergency housing, so I keep seeing new apartments going in everywhere, and a lot of it they say is Section 8 or more affordable.
Affordable housing.
Is that what you're talking about with emergency housing, or are we considering the pallets that's emergency housing?
The pallet is an emergency shelter. It's emergency housing. So we're able to kind of circumvent some building standards and codes, obviously, but it's a temporary situation.
Yeah.
It's an emergency housing temporary situation. And some of those other, group home situations or affordable housing situations are what you would call affordable. They're more of a transitional space or spot to get into more permanent housing.
Now, were you surprised with the recent efforts to kind of like, hey, can ask a judge with that Warren deal? Like, do you think we could look at maybe the fire risk in the creek beds, or do you think we could maybe look about like, hey, we cleared out Depot Park 9 times now? Can we just call it cleared? Were you surprised that the judge kind of said, should have thought about that before?
I was, and that's the frustrating component. The plaintiff's counsel is Legal Services of Northern California. We've negotiated with them extensively trying to get some improvements to the settlement agreement. Settlement agreement was written by them and a previous city attorney. I was involved in a lot of the verbal negotiations up until that point, and then the settlement agreement itself was written by the attorneys. And when we got it, we were somewhat surprised on some of the generalities or how broad it was, and we immediately identified problems saying, hey, look, this is going to be an issue. Reoccupation of sites is going to be an issue. There's no language in here that says we could hold the line, if you will, once we clean and enforce in a particular area. What's stopping people from going back in? At the time we were told, hey, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, we'll figure it out. Well, we've crossed that bridge many a times, and that's a very frustrating component is we're expending significant city resources to clean and enforce a particular site, only for days later for it to get reoccupied. So that was one of the items we brought back. We filed 2 motions last summer, one to the district judge, which is Judge Dale Droids, and that was kind of a lack of class certification. This was not a class action lawsuit, but it was being treated as a class action lawsuit. So basically, the original plaintiffs was just a handful of plaintiffs. We were arguing that, hey, this lawsuit or this settlement agreement should really only apply to them, not everybody that's experiencing homelessness. The other component was there's a law called non-delegable duties, meaning certain local agencies have non-delegable duties where you have duties such as law enforcement in enforcing certain codes and regulations that you can't delegate. You cannot not enforce those. So we argued that as well. That's still being considered by Judge Droids, but we don't anticipate a good outcome. I think the feedback we got from the hearing wasn't that great. He kind of had the position like, hey, look, the settlement agreement terms were acceptable when you signed it 4 years ago. Why are you trying to change it now? Type of position. We also filed a motion to the magistrate judge, Judge Carol Delaney, on several other options. One was the wildfire mitigation and prevention. The second component was the reoccupation of sites. And then the third component of that motion was the continuous properties issue. So again, we're trying to address the current practice of reoccupation of sites. As soon as we clean and enforce a particular area, it's quickly reoccupied. The other component was we identified, some pretty serious wildfire issues, Bidwell Park, Lindo Channel. In 2024, there was 274 transient-caused fires in Chico, and to that date in 2025, when we filed the motion back in early September or late August, there was 169 transient-caused fires. So again, this is post Camp Fire, post the Palisades situation in Southern California. We're very concerned with the wildfire threat caused from homeless encampments in the city of Chico. It's a significant concern for us, and we can't mitigate all those dangers. We can't do vegetation management in every square inch of our open space and prune all the trees, elevate all the tree canopies, and cut all the grass.
But
it's just not possible.
Just said, tough, just deal with it.
She did, unfortunately. We got that motion denied rather quickly, and basically the magistrate judge, Judge Carol Delaney, said kind of the same position we expect from the district judge of, hey, the settlement agreement was acceptable at the time when you signed it. You have to live with it.
That seems like something that you would think, it's not a partisan issue, it's
common sense.
A matter of life and death, and especially to an area like Butte County that is so sensitive to lives lost because of this sort of thing. I mean, you'd think it's something that the taxpayers of Chico could appeal to the judge, but they can't, right? There's nothing that could be, I mean, unless you just want to write on our Facebook page, like, hey, no fair.
Write letters, We've done everything possible. I mean, we've tried to negotiate with the plaintiff's counsel exhaustively. We filed multiple motions, and again, we weren't trying to get out of the settlement agreement. We're just trying to make some changes to make it a little bit more manageable and protect the citizens of Chico. We identified, Bidwell Park, Lindo Channel, large portions of Little Chico Creek as fire-prone areas, and that's what we were trying to mitigate by saying, hey, we would like to clean these areas and then go back to it. We were just trying to shorten the notification period to kind of prevent people from reoccupying those sites or those areas during the summer months to help manage the wildfire risk.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Last question, I guess, on the homeless situation is I've just always been curious, like these 8 people who initially sued, have they been a part of the process at all? Have you met them? Or I guess there's only 6 who are still living.
Yeah,
correct?
2 have passed. I have not met them personally. We've come into common contact with a few, several of the individuals. They were all given, as part of the settlement agreement, pallet shelters
Okay.
day one. Several have been departed numerous times for behavioral issues. So I have not met them. And yeah, I mean, the legal services during our negotiations always comments that they need to check with their clients, and,
Yeah.
and we understand that. And hopefully they are. I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
But
Did they get any money, the clients?
they did.
as part of the
Yeah,
deal?
they got a settlement.
How
they
much?
did.
Are you allowed to say?
Yes, I believe it's public. I think they got $1,500 a piece.
A piece,
Yeah.
1,500. Do we know how much Northern Legal Services
Yeah.
Services made?
I do know.
Can you say
It
that?
was, yes, sure. It was it started out at a $2 million ask, and it was negotiated down to about $600,000, 600 or 650,000, if I remember correctly,
Okay.
were the attorney's fees that we settled for in that
I'm
agreement.
surprised those 6 remaining plaintiffs aren't appealing.
Yeah, for the difference of
Yeah.
compensation, sure.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just how those
Yeah,
lawsuits
things
go
just,
sometimes.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. Well, another thing that you and I have spoken about that you know I'm passionate about is bringing back commercial
Yes,
airlines, and it's like
yes.
it feels like what's the expression, like they keep moving the goalpost or something, right? And
Good point. Yeah.
It's been it's just been a tough time for airline industry, right?
It has. The recent federal government shutdown did not help items
Mm-hmm.
at all. That was very frustrating from our perspective of, really trying to secure
Right.
return air service, where the airlines basically they've stopped talking at that moment and,
Yeah.
and are trying to manage, the flights that they
Well,
have.
that's just in the past month and a half.
Correct.
But even before that, it was like, well, there's like a pilot shortage during COVID and
yep.
all that stuff.
Aircraft shortage, pilot
Yeah.
shortage. Yeah, there's a lot, and it's funny. I relate it to the football field a lot too, because I feel like we're on the 5-yard line,
Right.
maybe the 1-yard line. We're getting very, very close in
Yeah.
the discussions we have. We're very active in negotiating. I don't want to say negotiating at this point, but discussing Chico with multiple airlines.
Yeah.
We've got it narrowed down to a few, and of course, in the airline industry, there's what you call a legacy airline. That's the Deltas, American, United, and then there's a regional airline, which is the SkyWest. And SkyWest used to operate in Chico up until 2014 under a contract with United. So we've been very engaged with both United and SkyWest about
Yeah.
returning service here. They have our leakage study. We've updated those numbers last year, if I remember correctly. They're accurate. They're great numbers. They agree with them. And so they agree with us that there's a good business case
Yeah.
to return service. Part of the problem, pilot shortage, plane shortage. We're looking for LA Basin. We would love to fly from Chico to LAX. Unfortunately, as you know, over the past year, it's very difficult to get a regional flight, a small airplane, if you will, into LAX. In fact, we were told the other day there's no airplanes less than 100 passengers flying into LAX right now. The
Interesting.
terminal priority is so extreme that it's just large flights that are coming in, international and large domestic flights.
Okay.
So we're still looking at the LA Basin. We had some great conversations with Avelo. They were looking at a Burbank connection at one
I'll
point.
take that. You can write
Yeah.
that down if you want. That
You're for that?
Burbank
Perfect.
has my vote. Yes.
I haven't flown in it, but I've heard a lot of great things
Oh
about
my
the
gosh,
airport.
it's so fast.
Yeah, that's
It's
what we've
so
heard. Easy in and out.
Yep.
Yeah, and they surprisingly have a lot of connections when we looked at it.
They
It
do.
was interesting.
Yeah, and you can get off the tail end of the plane too, because it's like you fly up outside.
Okay.
And it's just a 1-story airport, so you
Nice.
can, even if you get a back
Easy
seat.
to navigate.
Yeah, you can get right off there. It's right by my mom's house and my brother's, because I'm sure that interests you.
Hey, we'll do what
Yeah.
we can. Yeah, we're at this point. We would love the LA Basin.
Yeah.
Any of those, John Wayne,
Yeah.
Burbank,
It's-
Long Beach.
You know what? It's like, and I'm not trying to convince anybody, but I just think it would be so huge for our community, especially with Chico State being here. And like,
We need it.
Like I
We need the
remember,
connectivity.
Yeah, like when I was a student here, my parents, it was always kind of like, why don't you just drive home? Or maybe they would drive up to see me, because it's like Sacramento's 90 minutes, right? And it's just an extra 4 hours down to LA. So you might. It's just
Make the drive.
It's just tough.
It's
yeah.
tough. It's a long drive. It's
Yeah.
a day of travel and a day of travel returning, so
Yeah.
it's difficult. Where it could be an hour flight.
And I've heard of so many businesses coming in here, like bigger businesses, that maybe it didn't work out specifically because it was hard to get their international
Sure.
or East Coast clients to
Clients,
come to Chico.
customers, colleagues, yeah.
So it could make a big difference.
We have a good business case. Again, we have enough to fill up a 50, maybe a 70 passenger jet, several times a week, maybe even daily, to and from. Right now, the majority of those folks are driving to Sacramento, and we want to capture 20% of that business that's going to Sacramento, and we would sustain flights. So we think it's there. Again, we're in very good discussions. SkyWest was looking at a essential air service contract through the federal government for some other locations. Unfortunately, they didn't get it, but that would have really positioned us well, because then they would have been able to bring another plane to their West Coast operations, and Chico would have been an easy stop. So it was unfortunate they weren't able to secure that contract. Maybe there's some hope for a future contract potential. We're in discussions with other airlines too, in another regional, and the same regional partner on a potential San Diego flight too. So we're again we're on the 5-yard line. We're getting very close. We have a good business case. We're in extremely active discussions with airlines. They like Chico. They want to come back to Chico. It's just got to be right, and it has to be sustainable. So that's what I'm very hopeful that we'll return air service at some point. Hopefully, maybe within the next year or two. We really are hopeful for that. But then we have to sustain it. We need the public to use it, and fly out of Chico.
So maybe you could add pilot to your many roles that you do, right?
Unfortunately, I don't have a pilot's license.
My co-anchor Alan always talks about that. Like, if I were to do any other job, it would have been to be a pilot.
It would have been, it's a pretty fun job.
Seems like it could be a fun job. Interesting.
You see a lot, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the airport's very active. We have a very active general aviation airport. It's a great fire attack base with both CAL FIRE. We have some great private companies. Aeroflight is really expanding at the Chico Regional Airport. They lease one of our largest hangar right now. They're expanding into another hangar as we speak. So there's a lot going on at the airport, and we're excited about that. There's a lot of available land for economic development. That's also something that we're really promoting to bring. We want to have land available with utilities close and connected, and so we're really going to market the airport to try to do that as an economic driver. It's really, in my mind, it's the business card of the community and the city.
I know Chief Standridge, who's on leave or whatnot from the fire department at this time, but he was advocating for some sort of training center even there.
There was a grant opportunity through the federal government to establish a training center, which would have been kind of a regional training center, which would have been nice and nice
but we missed out on it. Kind of came and went.
It came and went, but it's always an opportunity to look at.
That's one last question I had for you about the airport, is because I know we have gotten some federal grant funding, right? Sure. That maybe would boost the revenue guarantee fund?
We did, we got a
SCASD. Expire?
It does in 5 years.
Okay, so we have 5 more years
We have 4, but there's opportunities to continue it and to push it forward.
Okay.
So I think we'll be okay. But that's another reason why we're very competitive right now, is we have a robust revenue guarantee fund, thanks to the community and stakeholders and businesses in the community that pledged to that. Our goal was $2 million, and we have 1.9, and I think we could close the door on the extra 100,000 to get right to 2 rather quickly.
What is do you have family here? Do you guys travel a lot? Like, what would be your ideal if you were to take a month off of work? Where would you go? What would you do?
A month off of work?
Yeah, a whole month.
That's an interesting question. I haven't thought about that. I love to travel. We've had the opportunity to travel a little bit with my wife and daughter. And so we've traveled to Europe before, and of course Hawaii and other states. I'd love to travel. I also love the outdoors. We have a boat. I love to spend time, skiing and wakeboarding and time boating, which is a lot of fun.
I love that you say that. So it's so funny because I grew up in Southern California, right? And we spend a lot of time on the water, and I love water skiing. And
awesome.
my whole family's into wakeboarding and all that stuff.
Fantastic.
And then I came up here. My husband's family, they're big fans of Lake Almanor, which is incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
But everyone looks at me like I'm crazy when I say, "Are we going to wakeboard?" Like, who's got a boat? Or you can rent one from Plumas Pines, and but it seems like people aren't into water sports. It's more like fishing.
Yeah,
do you notice that?
Potentially, especially on Almanor. It gets pretty windy sometimes.
That could be it. It's just so choppy. Do you do Lake Oroville?
We do Lake Oroville. We do Lake Shasta.
Okay.
I grew up in Redding,
That's
born
right.
and raised in Redding, so not far, and I have a lot of friends and family up there that we go to Lake Shasta quite a bit.
Does Shasta Lake have a rental place where you could rent a ski boat?
Several.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we'll take you. We'll take you and your family for sure.
Let's do it. I love that. Yeah, it's so much fun.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, so you have started a new role as assistant city manager. Tell me a little bit what what like that entails? Like what was kind of the first order of duty?
The first order of duty is I've been in the role 2 weeks,
Okay.
and it's been a lot of fun. I will say, as you know, the Director of Public Works, Operations and Maintenance for the last 10 years, I did have my hands in a lot of what the Assistant City Manager does already. So not a whole lot of new items as far as large projects and operations, but you know, I'm really getting settled in to kind of have, you know, give the city manager some bandwidth, if you will. He's been operating for some time, Mark Sorensen, without an assistant city manager. You know, assisting with oversight of the different departments, some of the programs and things that we have going on. Looking at a lot of contracts and dealing with a lot of contracts that we have that come out of the city manager's office. Really the new component of it too is the economic development side, which I'm excited about. Again, my degree was in business administration with a concentration in marketing. So it's not new to me, and it goes kind of hand in hand with what we're doing at the airport too. So I'm excited about those items, is really getting my hands around and pushing forward aggressively our economic development approach and strategy and plan.
Okay, so when we talk about economic development, I mean, the city of Chico is getting bigger, right? More
Correct.
people are moving. Do you think it's just like our population is increasing from within, or people are kind of getting away from big city living and seeking us out as kind of like a...
Yeah, a little bit of both,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think post-pandemic, people are able to work remotely a lot more than they had in the past. So we're seeing some migration from the Bay Area, Southern California. But yeah, we need to grow the economy, and unfortunately, our projections, our sales tax projections are forecasted in the next year are flat. They've kind of plateaued a little bit, and we want to continue to provide, you know, top-notch services to the citizens of Chico, and to do that, we need to grow the economy. So, yeah, when you know, we look at the, you know, Butte College and in Chico State are great amenities and great partners to have here in the community, and I think that's a quick way to grow the economy, is to increase their enrollment. They're actively trying to do that themselves, and we want to assist as much as possible. I know Butte College is trying to increase their enrollment, and so is Chico State. And we have the infrastructure set up already for students, if you will. I mean, you know, pre-pandemic, their enrollment, each institution was a little higher, went down, you know, during the pandemic, and now they're trying to climb back up and return it. So the infrastructure is already here to accept those students, and so I think that's a quick way to grow the economy and stimulate the economy, is to increase Chico State and Butte College's enrollment.
So what's the plan for downtown Chico? I mean, it's so expensive, right, to rent a storefront. It seems like hard for them to stay afloat, even when they're so great. Like some of my favorite restaurants and shops, like they're
it's hard to see that turnover.
And yet somehow they don't succeed.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors, right? I think, and unfortunately we've seen a handful of restaurants that are kind of closing at the same time, or our facilities in downtown Chico. The Downtown Chico plan is very exciting from an infrastructure standpoint. You know, those conversations and stakeholder meetings are going on now. So
like the street revamp?
The street, the improvement plans. That's, you know, being talked about, and again, public stakeholder meetings, and where input can be provided to make those designs and improvements. But that's very exciting, to make it a more walkable, increase foot traffic, those types of things will really help, I think, the local economy, and specifically downtown. So I encourage folks to look at our website and look at some of those stakeholder meetings where they contribute in some of those discussions and stakeholder groups. But I think the downtown situation is, you know, I don't want to say death by a thousand knives. That's not the situation we're in, but it is challenging for folks, and I think there's several different scenarios that contribute to maybe a business going out of business. Reduced amount of foot traffic, online sales.
Amazon.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's very convenient, right?
It's
we all
so
use it,
convenient.
but it does hurt those brick and mortar facilities that are in our community.
Yeah. Do you use Amazon?
I do, sure.
Yeah, right.
I try to shop local as much as I possibly can, because I see firsthand what it does for the local economy. But sure, there's some things that are just so convenient, and from a cost perspective too, that sometimes you go online.
And that's like the thing about Chico too, that it's because we are sort of like this island up in Northern California. Like you might go to the mall or go to a cute shop downtown, right? And you want a blue skirt and you want it in your size, and you can't find it, or you find it and it's not the right size, because it's like Chico can't have a blue skirt for every single person's size.
That's right.
Right? But Amazon always
does,
has it.
Yeah.
So I imagine that what's happening in Chico isn't specific to Chico, but it makes it even harder here, because we just don't have as much brick and mortar options.
We don't, yeah. And it's a challenge. They're facing high costs, right?
Yeah.
Utility costs, lease and rent rates are high. So we
Right.
want to do what we can to facilitate them being sustainable. So yeah, do whatever we can to shop local and boost the local economy. It helps those brick and mortar facilities and organizations and companies, those small businesses that are crucial to the local economy, stay in business. It's very important.
So this always sounds like a very dry topic to bring up. And I remember when I was a new reporter, it's pensions. Randall Stone, he tried to sell it to me as, I've got a big story for you. There's a giant boulder hanging over the city of Chico, and it's about to fall and crush it. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a breaking news story.
Sure.
But it is kind of a big deal, right? The unfunded liability issue.
Yeah.
Is that still something you're thinking about?
Of course, yeah. It's an item we're looking at. And so it's every organization, government organizations that's in the PERS retirement system in California is faced with it. And there's several things. A while ago, the Gatsby accounting standards changed for municipalities where we have to show all of our pension liabilities on our balance sheet, which shows a big liability, so that kind of puts your balance sheet at alters it to a certain degree, right? It'd be like any private company showing all their 401k recipients, if they retired today, what's that liability going to be? So there's that, but it's also PERS saying that, hey, we see with the amount of staff that you have and the retirement system and the retirement benefit that you have, we see there's a shortcoming when those folks retire, and that's based on their investment items too. So it's an unfunded liability that PERS is saying that they need the local agencies that participate in PERS, they need us to pay. They need us to compensate them so they can make sure that they pay those retirees what they've been promised throughout their careers. So we've put a different fund together. We put funding towards it each year. We're doing what we can to pay that down a little bit at a time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. There is some other options we could look at. A bonding situation or things like that. We hope not to have to do that. We want to continue to pay it down reasonably each year. And so far, we've been successful at that.
I mean, it's a good idea, the idea of pensions, right? It's a great way to recruit and retain great people because there's this promise, if you work your career here, you stick with us.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's an
you
incentive.
can retire and essentially you don't suddenly just have to rely on Social Security. But it's like, if you retire at 65 or 68 and you live to be 100, and then your spouse also, maybe, right?
Depends on the formula.
Depends on the deal. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that's like a hard financial burden to shoulder. It is.
It is. It's a good retirement system, and it works. But there's just there's some things that PERS can correct too. I mean, currently, it's hard to say this because I know there's potentially a lot of watchers that are PERS retirees, but they currently get a 2% cost of living increase each year.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, if PERS froze that COLA for 2 years, or excuse me, that 2% COLA, they froze it for 5 years, that would dramatically reduce each agency's PERS pension liability. So I think there's some work to be done, even at the PERS level and the Sacramento level, to really help that out. We're doing what we can at the local level. We have our hands around it. And we have a strategy, and we have a plan. But I think PERS itself could make some improvements too to make it a little bit more affordable. So for you, are you Chico for life now, or do you still have a ton of family up in Redding? Do you think you might ever work your way north? No, I love Chico. Yeah. It's a great community. It's a university town. It has a heartbeat. There's always something going on. I love the people here. We're pushing 110,000 people, but it still has a real small town community feel. If you go to the Christmas tree lighting or Christmas preview, it feels like it's just a small town. It's really great to have those functions available to us. So I encourage everybody to go downtown during those events. Go visit downtown Chico, shop in the stores, go to the restaurants. It's very enjoyable. So I have to ask you this because it's I feel embarrassed bringing it up, but the Christmas tree stringing of the lights. Yes. Everybody hates the vertical. They want the horizontal. They want the wraparound. Well, we did wrap them. We did twist them last year, yeah. Oh. You're going to see improvements each year. Okay. And so, our Public Works and operations and maintenance employees do what they can with what they have. Maybe some rainbow colors? We can't. You're not the first person that says that. And the one year, I think, what was it, 7 or 8 years ago, where it was a bit of a Charlie Brown tree. They tried to kind of go back and forth, and it really didn't turn out how they wanted. But they work hard at it each year. Yeah, sure. They did, the stringing vertically straight down seemed to be the cleanest at the time, but I think people are ready for a change. So last year we twisted them. I think this year you're going to see a little bit more lights and likely the same twist. So you need a big boom lift, right? It's probably a huge job. We have a 100-foot lift that does it. Yeah, so it is a large job. Yeah. we'll make some improvements to it,
Okay.
especially for you.
Okay,
Hayley.
now that I'm glad we brought it up. Yes, glad we talked about it. No, I love the lighting. Are you going to skate this year? Have you skated?
Absolutely.
It's a
I haven't
bigger
yet.
rink.
It's a larger rink,
Yeah.
and CART is really, we're great to have, the Chico Area Recreation District as our recreational programming partner. They do a fantastic job,
Yeah.
specifically with the ice rink. So,
It's so cool.
all sorts of activities,
Hockey
all
league?
sorts of events, a hockey league,
Yeah.
which I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah.
So
That
I'm
starts
not
tonight.
that great on skates, but I do get
know.
out there a couple times a season.
I know. I went for the first time, if you can believe it, last Christmas with my husband.
Okay.
And, my mom, she was actually a professional figure skater.
Really?
So I have a history
Wow.
in ice skating, but I'm not, it's been 30 years since
Sure,
I've done
yeah.
it. But the coolest thing was just that even though we're grown-ups and we're like old people,
Yeah.
we were just cracking up and giggling
It's
and
fun
just
the whole time, right?
Yeah, it's fun to
It's a
do
fun
those
event.
kind of things.
Yeah,
Yeah, with
it's
the kids or just to feel like
Yeah.
a kid.
It's great to have that feature in our downtown. We enjoy it, and we hope people come and enjoy it as well.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, Erik, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
it's been great.
appreciate your time, and I'm excited to see what comes next for the city of Chico with
Appreciate-
you as assistant manager.
Thank you. Appreciate it a lot. Thanks for the opportunity, and we're excited for what lies ahead with City of Chico as well. It's gonna
Thanks,
be
Erik.
fun.
Thanks for listening today. I decided to offer this podcast after enough of you let me know that you wanted a deeper dive into certain stories than you get on our TV broadcasts. We elect certain people to represent our voice, but who are they really? My hope is that this podcast answers that question. I love your feedback, and I want to know who you'd like to hear from next. Just fill out that comment section and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify.